psychologist, found this quote and put it in the foreword. And the quote, we'll read it together, between stimulus and response there is a space, and in that space is our power to choose our response. And in our response lies our growth and our freedom. So think about that. What does that mean to you? So many of us are living on default programming, operating on patterns and thoughts that have lived on through our cultures and our families for generations. And we may not realize, just like a laptop where we get our new laptop and we can go in and change the settings, that we have the ability to choose our response. And this is important and critical in the lives of so many, especially when you're dealing with mental health challenges, because many feel like a victim, like they can't change. And in fact, just so you know how critical this is, over 350 million people around the world are currently diagnosed with depression and anxiety. And that's just the diagnosed people. It's now the leading cause of disability in our world today, and by the year 2030, it's projected that that will be the one thing that we focus on and try to solve more than cancer, more than heart disease, will be mental health challenges. So there's definitely a place to talk about this, and again, important for you to share it. So let me give you some more cause to think about why you should learn this. Some of you are building a doTERRA business, and you came here to learn to grow your business. And here's some more wonderful research. This pioneered a lot by Dr. Daniel Goleman, who wrote the book Emotional Intelligence, and he came forward with other researchers and showed us that 90% of our success depends on how we manage our mood, how we're self-aware, how we manage our mood, how we are socially aware of other people, and how we manage our relationships at home. That's critical, 90%. It used to be that we thought that what happened is the smarter we were, the brighter IQ we had, that we would be better, that we would perform better. But you've probably already started to see that that's not necessarily true. The smartest people aren't the most successful people, but the most successful people are the people who understand their emotions, who can relate to other people, and who can manage their emotions. So guess what? doTERRA has the answers for all of this. And I'm excited to even share some more science with you before I lay out some amazing products that you want to look at for mental health. So let's look at this picture of the brain right here that you see behind me. Let's talk about maybe what happens in the brain, because I'm going to give you a scenario that many of you have probably been through. I think we've all been through it. I know I've been through this. And we may not know what's physiologically occurring in our brain. So have you ever had a day when your emotions got the best of you? Somebody's shaking. Oh, no, never me. You have that day when you're maybe, for me, it's tired, hungry, sleepy, fatigued, maybe sick, and somebody says something that triggers you. You've got a trigger, and your emotions take over. And suddenly you aren't thinking clearly anymore, and you send an email to someone that you wish you hadn't sent. Anybody? Or you fall apart on the phone and you yell at somebody and say something that you regret. Or you find yourself, no matter how smart you are, some of you may be therapists in this room, and you find yourself yelling at your husband or saying abusive things to your children that you thought you would never say in a million years. But you had an amygdala hijack, and you probably don't know what that is, but I'm going to tell you. The amygdala is this area of the brain that you see the little sign for it. I don't have a pointer to show you. It's attached to the hippocampus, which is about the size of an almond in the mid-center of our brain, the limbic system of the brain. And this area of the brain is meant to help us to make decisions based off our emotion. And if we have to choose between making decisions based off emotion and logic, guess what we're going to choose? Emotion. Okay? We're wired that way so we could survive. So that if we have an instinctual fear that strikes us and a bear is chasing us, we don't want to have to reason that through. Is it a bear? Does it look like a bear? No, I think it's a bear. You don't have time for that. But you do have time to respond to your emotions. So the amygdala, sitting right along the hippocampus, which is where we hold our memory, holds all of this emotional stuff, and it holds the old stuff, your childhood fears, your doubts and your worries that have grown up with you and maybe even have been affected in your family of origin. And so then, what does it do next? Okay, when we have the days when we can get triggered, because I know you have these too, you have a day when you get triggered, and guess what? You're wise enough to think it through. Have you had those days? You think you should reply to that email, but you think, I gotta sit on that till I feel a little bit better. But you had days like that too? Yes. Well, in those days, what happens is that amygdala gets triggered, those old emotions and fears, and you have some communication that goes to the frontal lobe. The frontal lobe of the brain is like your Google Drive. It has all this information in it. And so you have this fear that strikes, and then this communication that travels up the brain to the frontal lobe and tells you, hey, that's your child, you shouldn't hit them, you know? Or, hey, that's your boss, you shouldn't send that email, you know? And then the message comes back to the amygdala, and the amygdala says, oh, okay, I guess I better settle down, okay? Now, the amygdala hijack is the moment when that frontal lobe communication doesn't happen. There's also an area of the brain in between that's kind of our moral center that lets us weigh out, is it the right thing to do? You know, it gives us a chance to sort of judge it and say, is this morally acceptable to me or not? Now, all of this is happening without you probably even thinking about it, just like your heart is beating, your lungs are breathing without you even thinking about it. So, emotional intelligence, to tie a few thoughts together, emotional intelligence is going to be you developing the ability to manage that amygdala, because it's not possible, I want you to think about this, it's not possible for you to forget emotions and just say, I'm never going to feel fear, I'm never going to be angry, I'm never going to feel sad, because those are human experience emotions that we will all have. In fact, we're all having the same experience in this life, but with a different story. So you're not going to get rid of the emotions, but what you can do is you can strengthen the communication between the amygdala and the frontal lobe, and you can sort out the feelings that you have in the amygdala. So now let's talk about essential oils and how they fit in, because our brain has plasticity and has the ability to change. So you're not a victim, and I want you to think about that, all of you, wherever you are. I'm reaching out to you eye to eye right now, if I can find you. You're not a victim to your emotions. The brain can change. It's not hardwired. You can learn new ways to do things, and when you do, you create new neural pathways in your brain. And it's exciting, and it's amazing, and it's wonderful. So let's talk, before we go into all the oils and all the doTERRA products, let me just define a few neurotransmitters that some of you have heard about. Neurotransmitters are the neurochemicals that our body uses to feel and process emotion. That's how we define human behavior. And we do it with these 6. So we look at GABA, serotonin, norepinephrine, acetylcholine, dopamine, and glutamate. Now, these are all neurochemicals that we don't function with just one of them. We need all of them kind of functioning like an orchestra. And imagine if you were listening to a beautiful orchestra play and there was a violin or some instrument that was completely out of tune. Could it ruin the symphony? Yes, right? So just one of these out of tune, or the other's not playing up loud enough and leaving one to carry the weight, can cause problems for us and affect the way we feel emotionally, and certainly affect this communication between our amygdala and our frontal lobe, and even weigh heavy on the frontal lobe of the brain, where we often have some after effects for managing depression and anxiety. So, a few other things to know. It's not just the brain that we look at when we talk about emotions. We look at other parts of the body as well. We look at the gut, because we say the gut is our second brain. There's lots of evidence now to support that. And we know that the gut is so powerful because a lot of neurotransmitter activity begins here. We also look to the liver, because the liver is like the kitchen. You see me touching them on my body? Okay, stomach, liver. Okay, we look to the liver because the liver is like the kitchen of our house, except for our body. So much goes on in that kitchen, including the processing of hormones. So we'd certainly look at the thyroid as well, because the thyroid gland right here, that can certainly affect hormone balance. And women, do we know about hormone balance and mood and amygdala hijacks? Okay, right? So it's not just the brain. I want you to know that. And I also want you to know a few other facts here. Bacteria outnumber our cells by 10 to 1. Think about that. 10 to 1. You have 10 more bacteria to 1 cell in your body. Okay? Most bacteria reside in the gut. Healthy gut function becomes critical for your brain function because the neurotransmitter activity is all kind of starting down here. Here's something else that's really interesting to me. Inflammatory cytokines, or patterns of inflammation, are found to be very prevalent in people with depression. Hormone imbalances affect mood, we said that. Thyroid disorders affect the regulation of your neurochemistry. If you've had hypothyroidism, you may have felt sluggish and had some low mood. If you've had hyperthyroidism, you might also have felt some anxiety or stress. And then here's another biggie lately, food allergies. Food allergies can throw the whole thing out of whack as well. So there's a lot going on other than just the chemistry in the brain. Okay, now we're going to talk about solutions. I gave you the problem, let's solve it. doTERRA has answers, and we're going to talk about those. My favorite for mood, you all know, because I came here to your area of Europe, to the UK, and did a research project using lifelong vitality to treat patients in England with depression and anxiety. And guess what? We had results. Within 1 week, people had their symptoms of depression and anxiety reduced as they began to use their lifelong vitality pack. That makes a lot of sense to me, and it does to Dr. Hill and probably Emily, because the brain needs nutritional cofactors in order for the brain to produce neurochemicals in the first place. The body needs to make those inside itself. I can't take serotonin internally. I can't take dopamine internally, but I can take B vitamins and proteins and zinc and magnesium and calcium, and these cofactors, when they come together in the perfect natural form, come into my body, and my body says, oh, I know what to do with that. Now I can create more of this. Now I can create more of that. So if I want healthy neurochemistry, and I also want to affect the myelin sheath around the brain, which is the neuron, by padding that with fat, which we get in our omega fatty acids, we can take our lifelong vitality pack, and that pack alone is very, very supportive to mood. And I know many of you in this room have had miracle stories happen in your family just by the use of taking lifelong vitality. And some of this is consequential, we'll say. Maybe you have a thyroid imbalance, and that you're having a mood challenge, and you start taking lifelong vitality pack, and you have benefits for both your thyroid and your mood. So because so many things happen to lead us to mood, sometimes we say mood issues are what we call diagnostic tools to help us know what else is going wrong in the body. So doTERRA's Lifelong Vitality Pack kind of comes in. Think of it as the mother of the house that can do everything, pretty much everything. We need dads too, but moms feed and cook and do the laundry and kind of keep the house going. Lifelong Vitality has the ability to come into your body and do so many things besides just help the brain. So we talked about thyroid. There's some oils for that. We love our clove. Oh, I'm a slide behind. There we go. We love our clove, myrrh, and lemongrass along with lifelong vitality that can be very supportive to thyroid. Now we've got our liver as well. We want to take care of the liver by supporting it with different essential oils too. And we have the endocrine system, which is my favorite, along with this lemon that we put in our water that we tell people about all the time. But I've added a few other essential oils that are wonderful for the liver. Now, I just had a thought fly through my mind. I want you to think about what Emmanuel just said was self-care. And I want you to think right now, how might you take these items home and start using them more to care for yourself? You know, all of you need to be walking your talk. Here's some support for gut function. We have a lot of essential oils that help with gut function, and you love Digestin. I know you all do. I love Digestin. Saved me so very many times. And we have our GX Assist and PB Assist program that help our gut stay well. We have our Terrazyme, digestive enzymes that help us in our gut function. And we also have help for inflammation. So every problem I've given you, we have a product for it. And you may not think about it as it relates to mood, but all of these things are powerful for mood. And I want you to know that, and again, share it. The deep blue polyphenols are wonderful for helping to support the inflammatory response, as well as essential oils like cinnamon, oregano, DDR prime, and our omega fatty acids. You might want to take a lot of those if you're needing extra support. Now we can talk about my favorite, which is oils and our mood essential oils. And I have to thank our owners for this as well, and they may not even realize this, but when I mentioned to you the research done on emotional intelligence, the first quadrant in the 4 quadrants discovered in emotional intelligence is self-awareness. And in our day and age, many of us are lacking in self-awareness. We don't know how we feel. Many of us stuff and store our emotions, and we're not quite aware of what's going on in our body and our mind, and we just go on autopilot. Why do we do that? Why do you think we do that? Maybe because we don't know what to do with it if we discover it? Maybe because it's scary to think about looking at our emotions and what's going on. So we just go into that sort of fight or flight autopilot and kind of function from there. It's common. And because of the lack of emotional awareness, we have this wave of people throughout the world who are becoming more and more disconnected. Now look at this beautiful wheel that you have in the emotional aromatherapy kit. What does it offer you in the center? A wheel where you can start to identify your emotions. And this is a powerful tool for you to have at home. My recommendation would be that you have this box out and that wheel available if you have someone else living in your home besides yourself. And teach your family to go to the wheel to identify their emotions. Because just that process in and of itself of identifying a feeling is your first step in increasing your emotional intelligence. And then the second quadrant of emotional intelligence is self-management. So when you come into this wheel, come to this wheel and you look it up and you pull out the bottle and you unscrew it and you roll it on yourself, what are you doing? Managing yourself. So you're moving along the path of emotional intelligence just by using this beautiful emotional aromatherapy kit. Now, I had some requests to share some slides on neurotransmitters and essential oils that help to bring those in balance. And I see you all snapping pictures, which is great. I want to ask you, though, to look at these slides and identify by self-evaluation which oils you see yourself drawn to all the time. Our body tends to know exactly what it needs. And in fact, when we look at addictive behaviors and patterns, we discover that most of the time with addiction, people are self-medicating an imbalance in their body. So they go to destructive sources to find what they need to bring balance in the body, and then it doesn't deliver, and so it becomes addictive. They keep seeking more and more of it. So you might already notice that you are gravitating toward essential oils that are helping you to balance neurotransmitter activity. So here's your serotonin, which is the neurotransmitter that helps us to feel relaxed and calm, but also to help us to not feel depressed. So this is probably your most famous neurotransmitter because it's most associated with the medications that you may be familiar with, like SSRI, serotonin reuptake inhibitors, which are your Prozac, Zoloft, drugs like this. So here are some essential oils, not necessarily replacements to medication, but definitely oils that will help you to increase serotonin production. Here is your dopamine. This is your pleasure center. These are the emotions that make you feel happy, that you want to live life, and you want to have joy. Clary sage, Roman chamomile, patchouli, rosemary, jasmine, and lemon. And by the way, this is all very scientifically researched. You can find this in a number of research articles online if you want to go in and look it all up. Norepinephrine. This is the neurotransmitter that's often associated with attention and focus, and also a little bit with anxiety. Rosemary, lemongrass, black pepper, and grapefruit. And here's a big one that you might be familiar with, GABA. GABA is one that helps to calm and soothe the body as well, and helps to step us out of feelings of anxiousness. Glutamate. Bergamot and lavender are the only two that we know of that are super supportive of glutamate. And just generally speaking, because you know frankincense does everything, right? We have to mention it. Frankincense, basil, I think I'm saying it right. I'm trying to be British here with the change of oregano and basil. Give me credit. Frankincense, rosemary, peppermint, and Melissa essential oil. As we wind up here, I have to shamelessly say that is my grandson, my 2-year-old grandson. He's 2 now. He wasn't quite 2 in that picture. But he is a happy baby. He's been happy, and he brings so much joy into our family. And we always comment on how he is always happy, how he can just kind of shake things off, and no matter what's happening, he brings a smile to our family and makes us all happy. And I do believe that we're all wired for that. I believe you came into this world to be happy, and I believe that you can make choices. Remember, we're talking about choices that can change your life and bring you back to this original state of being a happy person. And you can do this by some simple activities that you can take ownership of, like eating right, supplementing, sleeping well, exercising, using mindfulness meditation. Europe has done some of the best research on mindfulness meditation to help calm that amygdala. So you can pair your oils with meditation. Works so beautifully to calm the amygdala. You can avoid default living. Do you know what I mean by default living? Just doing what everybody did in your family just because they did it. You don't have to do it too. You've got your laptop, remember, it's your mind. You can pull it up and change the settings. And just because depression runs in your family doesn't mean you have to own it. Just because addiction runs in your family, you don't have to be there, because you can choose out. And I promise you, it works. I will tell you, in some cases it takes time and professional support and you need it. But that's okay. Give yourself permission to get your needs met, as Emmanuel told you, and go out there and decide you're not going to live on the patterns of your ancestors just because. You can do something different. You can choose to think positively, and it is a choice, and it's a habit to decide, nope, I'm not going to think that. Nope, I'm not going to criticize my leaders. Nope, I'm not going to feel bad about myself. Nope, I'm not going to feel not good enough, not deserving, and not lovable anymore. I choose differently. And this will, I promise you, that just deciding to think differently and taking steps will lead you down a different path. I want to mention, you have to create loving relationships. Thank you. You have to create loving relationships. You have to, because you can have all the perfect chemistry in the world and feel really good, but if your family's falling apart, I can tell you it's going to hurt. It's going to hurt. And you want to have happy families. Do you know what the #1 ingredient of happy families is? You can shout it out if you know. Anybody know? Besides my husband, who I remind him all the time.
Love. Kindness.
Love. Happy life. They know. They came to my class. It's kindness. Kindness. We often think it's commitment. We often think it's honesty and forgiveness and all those great qualities. But do you know that it's kindness? It's the simple acts of charitable kindness that go on in a family that make a happy family. So calming that amygdala should be the most important thing you look at doing in your relationships, so that you can be kind, so that you can speak kindly to your family, to your team, to your loved ones. We tend to treat our family worse than anybody. We talked about why that is, because we don't feel like there's as much risk, If we're mad at them and yell at them, they're still going to be there tomorrow. They're our family. But we have more risk in our external relationships, so we tend to treat those people nicely. And yet, the more important relationship for our mental health, not just for the unit to work, but for our mental health, is for us to treat people kindly. So it's kind acts of service that make all the difference. And lastly, I'll share with you my beautiful family. We've spent years mastering this information so that we could model this. And it's taken time and effort on all of our parts. And I'm so proud to honestly say, without any deception, that I have a happy life and a happy family. And these beautiful people share in my joy and my message that we don't have to live depressed as a society and a world, but that we can come back to our homes. And it starts in here, it starts with you, making the changes you need to make, and letting that reach out beyond yourself, to your families, to your relationships. And through that, this is how you change the world. I'll share with you in final a statistic from my book, Healing Your Family History. I have 2 people marry and have 3 children. And those 3 children marry and have 3 children. And the pattern of marrying and bearing 3 children continues for 12 generations. Just guess how many people originate from that original couple. You think a few hundred, maybe 1,000. It's actually 3,164,188 people. If you want to change the world, you change yourself. And then you will go out and you will change the world. And you will solve a worldwide problem as you do so. Please share this.